So years ago, when I was an apprentice, one of the things I had to do was work on a carving station. And this was at brunch, which was nuts. And we had two stations. We had two different separate brunch areas because it was so big, this place. And I was with a big hip of beef, tragically hip of beef, as I used to joke. Rest in peace, Gord Downey. And I had a partner. So you had someone out on the carving station and you had someone that would come and refill stuff because you had to be there. And so you had this partner that helped with you along. Now, we used to rotate. And I recall one day, right in the middle of brunch, there was some other cook who was carving. And I was the one refilling, jus and, more stuff for him. And I don't know, the sous chef or something happened. I don't recall, or he got overwhelmed or something. And he just slammed his tools into the toolbox, slammed the lid shut, walked off and said, I don't want to do this. I just always wanted to be a musician anyways. And he stormed off. And that was it. I had to run in and replace him. And I mention this because as an apprentice, I was so passionate about my job. I loved everything about being a cook, an apprentice. I inhaled cookbooks. I inhaled anything to do with cooking. Food Network wasn't really much of a thing back then, but I would go online, and even then the internet was still in its infancy, but I would go to top restaurants' websites in the world, the top restaurants, their websites, and download their menus. I had volumes, binders. I don't know how much I spent on paper and toner. And I would just pour over them. Like everything was food, and cooking and all that. So I mention that because I had a real hard time understanding fellow cooks who just were there just for the paycheck. And I'm like, how do you do this? And I was judgmental. Absolutely. Like, here are these people who dared to make a living and then go off and do the things that they really loved. Like, why shouldn't this should be the thing you love? And I was just like in people's faces about it. And that guy that stormed off, I mean, I know tons of cooks. I'd say 95% of the people I have ever worked with, students that I've taught, apprentices I've had, bosses I've had, I'd say about 95% of them are probably not cooking right now. I've seen in recent years, cooks become, artists like the musician, but full-on artists, airline attendants, accountants, realtors, cybersecurity experts, financial advisors, tutors, and entrepreneurs of all kinds. Hell, I'm doing this right now. I've stepped into the creative space. I've stepped into the spirituality. I've stepped into leadership and coaching and all the stuff I do, entrepreneurship. I'm the same because that passion shifted. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the idea that our jobs have to be our passion and how that is bollocks. And ways that you can go around, like how to find joy in your job, even for one that you maybe like or don't like. And just the idea that we can pursue both at the same time. We can have a job and we can pursue our passion, and they're not the same thing. So I'm going to just jump right in. Welcome to Seared. I always forget to do a little welcome. My name is Paul Silva. I'm a retired chef, and I do a million other things. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm sure you've heard of Ikigai. Have you seen that? It's like a Venn diagram, and it shows you it asks what do you love? What does the world need? What are you good at? What can you be paid for? And it gets more into these concentric things until you find the one thing that satisfies all those questions. And that is apparently your Ikigai. Now, just so you know, that is a bastardized version of what true Ikigai is. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. And the person that actually created that actually said, like he said, I combined a few things, but it went viral. So people think that's the real thing. But really what Ikigai is the reason for being, or the power necessary for one to live in this world, happiness to be alive, benefit, effectiveness. It's like what you wake up for. And it's not about getting paid and what's your career or vocation or whatever. It's just about finding small joys throughout the day rather than a profession, that lights you up like a, I don't know, like a demigod who swallowed a street lamp or something. It's not about that. Because purpose is not baked into your work, which we often feel like it has to be. We're told over and over and over again, that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Again, which is BS. There's always going to be something that isn't fun to do at work because it's work. It's called work for a reason. And even for those who feel like their work is their life's work, which is, I think I read like only 5% of people have a real vocation in life, and they confuse the hell out of the rest of us, because I've been told countless times, and I even have shared that if you love what you do, you're not going to work. And the reality, I was just sharing with someone today who wants to do martial arts. They were doing one thing, and if they could do martial arts all day, every day, they would be happy. And they're going to actually be teaching. I know someone who became a yoga instructor. Even it's so different from what they do in their other day job, let's say. But it's their joy. Now, even in those situations, there's still parts of that are tedious. Maybe cleaning the dojo or just doing the back end, planning all the stuff, or coming up with whatever it is you need to run your business. Like I saw something the other day that my wife sent it, actually. It was a company that will foster or just take care of your pet while you go to rehab. And I was like, oh my God, I can see myself. Like that is what I want. Because as addiction recovery is part of my story. And I used to have a podcast called Buzzkill. It's not much out there because it was hosted on SoundCloud, which I don't know why I did that, but I stopped paying for SoundCloud, so I think you can only see like 5 episodes, but I have them somewhere. I don't know where. So I did a lot in the area of addiction recovery. I wrote a book on addiction recovery and spirituality. I've done so much. And so there's still a small part of me that, loves that. But I love animals like dogs primarily. It's like, oh my God, I want to do that. But even then, if I did that, there's going to be parts that aren't going to be fulfilling. Like I'm going to have to clean up after them. I'm going to have to clean the hair off of it. Some animals maybe have issues, emotional, like it's not going to be fun, a lot of it. Now, the overall thing, yeah, it's beautiful. So all this to say that your passion is not always going to lie in what you do, right? There's a famous fake story, shall I say? I'm very much about like when I hear stories, I'm like, is that really true? And I believe this one feels like it's not, but it's still a cool little story. And I'm sure you've heard it. It's like about Christopher Wren. He was the architect responsible for rebuilding St. Paul's Cathedral after the Great Fire in London. I think it was 1600 somewhere. And apparently, right, the story goes, he was walking down the length of the partially rebuilt cathedral, and he saw 3 bricklayers, right? So it's always in threes, right? 3 little pigs and 3, anyway. And he asked them what they were doing. And the first bricklayer said, I'm working. The second one said, I'm building a wall. And the third one paused, dramatic pause, looked up and said, I'm building a cathedral to the Almighty. Now, you understand where that's going, right? Like, I love parables too, so don't get me wrong. But it goes to show that you don't have to have a divine connection to your work, to do your work. Of course, that story is meant to show like just how invested that third that third bricklayer was, the purpose involved, like just how the purpose was just like he was doing more than just what he was doing. And I felt like that when I was cooking, by the way. I felt like I was really contributing in a way. And I felt every plate I put out and everything I imbued it with all my essence. But that didn't last forever, of course. The other kind of story, which I also think isn't quite true, could be true, is like President Kennedy, where he's visiting a NASA establishment and saw a janitor sweeping the floor. And the president asked the janitor what he was doing. Like he would ask, I don't know, it seems silly. But the janitor said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. And again, it's this idea that he's infusing the idealism and the values and the mission and the mandate of the business into his sweeping of the floor. Now, I feel at a certain level, there is some of that. I worked at a sports arena, and they used to tell us, and, with some big major sports teams in there, and they would tell everyone from the quick service people to, the floor sweepers to the people who, worked, on the ice to whatever, people that did tech, all that. And they would always say that we are all here to build a championship. And so I understood what they said, and they were trying to imbue that purpose, that mandate into everyone. And, for some, it probably worked. And I don't think it was a ploy necessarily, a managerial ploy. I think they truly felt that, like, this is the energy, because it's all energy. We're bringing this energy into the building and the culture and all that. It hasn't worked so far. It didn't work while I was there. It still hasn't worked. But I did like the idea, definitely at the time. And, when it comes to jobs, right? Because for a lot of people, it is like you go to work, you come home, you do your thing. Like, it's jobs. We need jobs. We're in this 3D world, right? It's the economy, and, you got to pay rent, you got to pay for food. But like, why do we put this pressure, though, on people to find jobs they're passionate about? So they don't have to spend the day working. I mean, as I've been thinking about this, it feels like in some way it sets people up for failure and disappointment, right? Because we're told that we have to look for this thing that we may never find, right? And then when we don't find it, we feel dumb. Like, why is everyone else doing the thing they love and I'm not? And we know that is not correct. But again, we see this and hear this, and you hear this a lot in entrepreneurship and professional development, and et cetera, et cetera. And I felt that way even back then when I was judging everyone else for not being as passionate as I was. It's like, they don't deserve to be here. I deserve to be here. It's like self-centered bugger. And I'm not talking about people that hate their job. That's different. I think that's a tough place to be, where there's nothing at all you like about your job, or at least that's the story. And there are people that have awful jobs, and it's not at all in line with who they are. And I'm not going to be getting much into that. That's a different feel. This is more about people that like, they're okay with their job. They're okay with it. They like it. And I think at a point, you do want to be in a job that you like, that maybe it's the people that you work with. Maybe there's an aspect of the job that you like, considering how much time you spend there. And it would be awful energetically and all that to be at a job that you absolutely despise. And we've all been there. We've all had those jobs. And boy, oh boy, is it hard to get up and go there. And I've seen places that I loved being, and seeing those people come in. And I know, because at times I've been that person. But again, your job should not have to be your passion. Because every job is going to have tasks that just are menial, tedious, boring, annoying, frustrating. Again, it's work. And the other part of trying to get a job that is in line with your passion, quote unquote, is that you risk misplacing your identity into something like a title or salary, or being able to make it through the day just like floating on a pink cloud. And what happens, the problem with that is what happens when you lose that job or you retire or whatever. And this is a struggle that mostly men, they find, studies find mostly men struggle with this when they retire. And sadly, the suicide rate for men in that age bracket there's a sharp spike, because a lot of men, once they lose the CEO title, once they lose, whatever title they had, they don't know who they are. And sometimes it's just too much. And so that can be a problem in trying to find something that you identify with so much, even though on some level it's wonderful to have something that you're passionate about, but it doesn't have to be that way. And what I have found is that people that enjoy their jobs, there's something about it that's aligned with them, with their core self. When you look at something that maybe reflects your skill set, your strengths, personality even, you can bring more to your job. Again, it doesn't have to be your purpose or passion. And purpose and passion are two very different things as well, by the way. I think I've spoken about that. I can't remember. But there is something that you can bring. Like one thing I've always asked, and I've asked this, and I did this myself, and I've shared this with many clients who struggle with being at work, is what is one aspect of work that you enjoy? Like, again, what I asked earlier, is it the people? Is it, the customers, or I meant fellow workers? Is there like, what's the one thing? Is it selling people? Is it helping customer? Whatever it is, what's the one thing? Once you identify that, then focus more on that. So for me at my last job, as my interest was starting to wane, just in general, it wasn't the job itself. The job itself was great, but I was headed into other directions. I just remember saying to myself, I love mentoring. I love one-on-one conversations. I love when I have these chats with staff and see what they're about and help them and inspire them and, whatever it is, mentor. And so I focused more on that. I was in the position of authority, so I could book meetings one-on-one with staff and just say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can help you with? And so I really focused on that. The other stuff I wasn't crazy about. I just wasn't. I've been there, done that. I was kind of bored. It was tedious. And so for you, what is it about your job? Even one small thing, even if it's 5% of your job, like, is there any way to expand that to 10%? Is there any way to open that up? Or you can focus on how you can infuse your core self into your job, to experience the joy that accompanies being able to be authentic. So if you're dealing with customers and you're a funny person, but you hold that back, how can you infuse more of that humor into your workday? Or if you're creative, like artistic, how can you infuse that into your work at a bank? I don't know. So you can look at that, and because when you understand yourself and what brings you joy, and you're looking at your natural strengths and skills and interests, you can look at, like, where can I harness these most? If you're a gregarious, open person who loves to chat, being in the back in the warehouse, probably not your best. You might be in front of people and sharing and selling, or, helping them out with something. It's about looking for what can tap into your strengths. I was thinking, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about the pandemic and how the pandemic really changed how we looked at work. We're still seeing the effects now in 2024. In Canada, I think about 25% of Canadians started working in jobs completely unrelated to what they did before COVID-19. And I saw that in the industry, in the hospitality industry. They, of course, restaurants, hotels, everything, they just shut down. So what would these people do? So this is where transferable skills kicked in, like customer service, management, operations. I think a lot of people jumped into real estate or to retail or aviation, luxury set. Like a lot of people jumped into those. A lot of people did online stuff. It really shifted how things worked. And again, right now we're seeing that with the flexibility with people working from home. And there's like tussle right now between businesses trying to force people to come back in. And people are like, listen, this works for me. I get more done. But people also decided, I don't want to be a server anymore. I don't want to be a cook anymore. What I really want to do is become fluent in 3 languages and be a translator, or, get into crypto, or get in whatever it is. So it was like an awakening for so many people. We saw the quiet quitting. We saw all that stuff happening. And people also start to see burnout as something they didn't want anymore. They wanted to see a change in their workplace culture. They wanted to step into skill diversification. A lot of them became entrepreneurs. I mean, no choice in some ways. So how do you step into this job and passion thing, like realistically? Like if you're looking to step into another chapter of your life, and I know so many people who have gone quite, C-suite or high level, or moved, owned businesses and all that, and they just want to do something else. And we get this idea of, again, like, what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about? And again, that can stall you. That can be crippling. That can set you up for disappointment. And what I would ask, there's a few questions, it's just really reframing, is like, how can your career or job be a conduit to passion? Like, do I need to pursue my passion through work? What would it look like if I pursued my passion outside of work? Would it be equally fulfilling? Like, how will this job give me the resources, like time, money, energy, etc., to pursue your passion? And so there are people that I've worked with who their passion was doing whatever it was they were doing it, but struggling as an entrepreneur. And, the wolves are at the door. They got to pay their bills. And I've always said, perhaps the best thing to do is just get a job. And it's horrifying to some people because it means that they're a failure. And it's not. It's hard to create and build a business when all you're doing is stressing about money. You're just repelling money. And so I know people have stepped out. They've put their ego aside and pride and gotten jobs and been so happy. And in fact, have stepped into the thing. Like, I know someone that did online, sort of like marketing, did courses, all that, help people do courses. And she decided, and I worked with her and she's fantastic. I love her. And she decided to work at a little boutique clothing shop. Completely different. And you know what? She loves it. Last time I spoke to her, I think she got promoted to the buyer. And it's clearly it was something that she really enjoyed. Maybe it was a passion and she stepped into it a little bit more, or yeah. So we can do that. So it doesn't, or, people who have gotten jobs doing whatever, working at a warehouse, etc., and enjoying it. Not that that's going to be their next vocation or whatever, but they get the security, they get the pay, they get the hours, and then they take that and put it into their new business or whatever. And so if you're in that spot where, like, I have to find my job and passion, they have to be the same thing, they don't. This is the whole point of it. This is what I want to get through to you, is it doesn't have to. So you can have your passion, whatever it is, and you can look at jobs. Like, you can look at, like, what's the flexibility, what's the pay, what's the energy, is this going to drain me? When I was chefing and with monster hours, I mean, I had little time to pursue passions, and unless you count drinking yourself to near death and wrecking your life as a passion, then, oh, sure, I had time for that. But a lot of times I was drained from work and I had very little downtime. And when I did have downtime, I was either recovering from drinking or sleeping, or I was just drained. And so if you're looking to pursue your passion and have like that sort of work life, I don't want to say balance, but integration, look at what kind of job do you want to do. And there's there's a couple reasons why keeping passion and your work life separate is a good thing. And this is not to say that you can't do it. If you have a job that you absolutely love, it lines up with everything and your heart and soul's in it, you're probably in that 5% I spoke of earlier. You're probably in that 5%. And congrats. That's amazing. But for a lot of people, they don't have, a lot of people just don't have that. And like I said, I've had many jobs like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, when am I done? Keep looking at my watch. But again, the reason that you may want to keep them separate, or what's some good reasons, is one, it can create, like having them two separate, your passion and job, it helps create healthy boundaries between work and your life. So if you're slinging burgers at a fast food, but your joy is to play the guitar, then you have a very clear line of demarcation between the two. Also, if you're looking for a passion job, let's say, let's call it, there's a chance that you may change your mind. It may not align in the end. And then you're kind of now stuck with a job until you find another one. And the third, what I would say is that and this is very common, is we find something that we're really passionate about and we decide, I'm going to do that for a living. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I did that. I cooked and I decided, maybe I'll do this for a living. It worked out. It did. And for many people, it can work out. But for some, it doesn't. Because what happens is, if you love gardening and you work at a garden center or you help landscaping and all that, it can lessen your joy in doing that thing. And I used to joke, people used to come to me all the time and say, man, I love cooking. Oh, I'm so good. It's my favorite thing. And I'd ask them why. I'm like, oh, I feel creative and artistic and it's my me time and I just relax and I listen to me. And they're like, I wonder if I should do that for a living. I'm like, no, don't. I say no. No, because all those things you just described, they're going to get wrung out of you. And not to say there's no joy, and I did it for 25 years, but it's a lot of hard work. It can grind you down. Absolutely. And hours, your body, like all that stuff. And so I tell people, if you find such joy in cooking, maybe just keep it as a passion. And then go work at the bank. Because it's going to be more pronounced when you come home and you make this delicious meal for your partner, your family, yourself, whatever. It's going to hold more meaning. It's going to be more, your passion is going to be there rather than it just being a job. And again, as I kind of wind down on this, there's nothing wrong. I mean, we all need to work. We all need to make an income. We all need to bring in revenue. And you don't have to have a job that is your passion. You want to have a job that you like, that you can imbue your personality into if you can, and that allows you to pursue your passions outside of work. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think that is a great way of stepping into things. I think it's very normal. I think it is something that we have to break, this idea that your job has to be happy, joy 24/7, because it's not. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. But if you can, as an entrepreneur especially, we can craft that as closely as we can. And that's one of the benefits of entrepreneurship. But there's also a lot of other things about entrepreneurship that can be a struggle. And that's another tale for another podcast. I hope that makes sense. And if there's any comments or thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. Something new. I want to just bring your attention before you just shut off and like Paul's going to say kitchen's closed. Blah, blah, blah. I do want to say I'm creating a new community on email. And this is something, as I start to step into more of my passion and that as that unfolds, I've really been conserving my energy lately but in a good way. I'm not isolating or anything like that. I'm just really seeing what's important to me. And I love creating. I love videos. I love this podcast. I love, I'm really opening up more on the spiritual side back into that. That was something that I did for a while, but it's not something you do. It's just a way of being. But I have some things coming up, and I have created already a community on email, and I'd love for you to be on there if you're not there already. And it's because what I'm passionate about is inspiring and motivating, teaching, sharing, kind of like what I do here. And with this email community, it's a place to find out what's coming up, like workshops. I have a workshop that I'm working on right now. It's going to be free. You'll find, new episodes of the pod and the YouTube. You Are Gumbo. I'm going to throw in maybe some resources, maybe some fun rants. Who knows? I enjoy writing. I love writing. I'm a good writer. And you'll find, and I might do something where I do a daily thing. I did this on Threads and people loved it. I did a little daily motivational thing and me being grumpy with my coffee. Anyway, I would love for you to be on there. I put the word out online, and in one day I already have like almost 150 subs. So be a part of it. It's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. There's going to be stuff for you to check out. So if you'd like to be a part of that, sign up. It's free. I'm not asking for anything at all. I'm going to put the link in the description for this podcast. Please, and you can share it if you think you know someone that would benefit. It's a form, just your name and email. That's it. Nothing else. I'm not looking for your blood type or what's your favorite Twilight character. So be a part of it. And also, of course, check out You Are Gumbo. Got stuff coming up there weekly pretty much. And much love. Thank you so much. Like, comment, share, subscribe, review, all the good stuff. So thanks for being here again. And now I'm going to say it. Kitchen's closed. Now scram.